welcome to Primetime Watchmaking the News, and today's show will be quite intense as the watchmaking planet has finally woken up from this long summer break in terms of novelties and newsworthy stories. So quite a few product launches in this edition, some other interesting brand news, and some additional info regarding upcoming watchmaking events in October. But first, a huge thank you for all the great feedback we received so far on our watchmaking road trip adventure. It makes us super proud and happy, and again, our goal is really that anybody can see this great journey. You don't have to be a total watch geek, even if it helps. Episodes will continue to be published on a weekly basis, and there's some pretty cool stuff ahead, I can promise you that. So don't hesitate to share the good words around you. The more we are, the more exciting it gets, and the more people will hopefully better understand why there can be some crazy watchmaking lovers like us and you. So let's start with the most recent product launches, and we'll first honor Patek Philippe, who are celebrating one of its icons, the Nautilus, introduced 40 years ago, with a special double limited edition. At the time, the Nautilus was the first sports watch of the brand and came in steel. Its designer was legendary Gérald Junta, also father of the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, and you might remember the special connection, if I may say so, I have with this great man with my previous apartment. Well, that was a cool coincidence, but let's go back to these special commemorative editions, and these models are definitely not steel version, but one hour and date model coming in a 44mm platinum case limited to 700 pieces, the reference 5711/1P, and this big size is naturally referenced to the original model, nicknamed the Jumbo, because it was considered a huge watch at the time. Things change, though watches are in general getting back to more reasonable sizes today. Well, this self-winding watch is equipped with a 324 SC movement, some of you will appreciate, and diamond baguettes indexes are fitted on this 18-karat gold blue dial, where you will find the engraved 40th anniversary logo at 6 o'clock. The second version, the reference 5976/1G, is a flyback chronograph, and it's even more jumbo as it comes in an almost 50mm wide gold case. Yeah, that's really big. You'll find a similar special blue engraved dial with the diamond indexes, but naturally with the chrono counters at 6 o'clock, and something very dear to the Nautilus collection are the pushers that are well integrated within the case. This watch is limited to 1300 timepieces, and I don't know if you can really say limited with such production numbers, but special editions for sure. Lastly, I just wanted to add that both these watches come in a special cork box, and I get that some of you might find this a bit bizarre, but it's a tribute to the original box in which it came in. And regarding prices, well, we're in the rather high figures, as the Platinum 5711 is priced at $113,000 US, and the Chrono at $96,000 US. So I guess we'll sadly have to pass on this one, sadly. But again, and this is a little aparté, but you know us, and we don't talk too much about prices on the Watches TV. This is really not our prime focus, but on a personal note, I think the pricing of watches has seriously become a real issue, and we're clearly seeing the limit of this today. Some changes will have to occur. It's not by simply coming with a steel version that it will resolve this question. Things need to be taken into consideration with a broader comprehension of the entire situation. I know we're talking about luxury products, where the price is a direct component of this luxury dimension, but continuous price increases over the last 10 years was simply unreasonable. I unfortunately don't see too many significant changes yet, reason why we'll continue to focus on the people and the crafts more than on the price of some of our favorite timepieces, but I agree that it's an important subject, and there is naturally a huge difference between a brand producing 100,000 watches compared to more artisan brands producing a couple hundred timepieces per year. So production and overhead costs cannot be compared, but still. Well, let's nevertheless remain in this super high-end territory with the next product launches, as Vacheron Constantin has just presented a new traditionnel chronograph perpetual calendar. This timepiece is equipped with a new caliber for the brand, the 1142 QP, beating at 3 Hz, and comes in a 43mm wide by 13mm thick round platinum case. You'll find a nice engraved moon phase in the middle of the date counter, and this watch is naturally Geneva Hallmark certified. But the news didn't stop there for Vacheron, as we got to see two pre-SIH8 releases, and yes, I know this is quite early. So the first timepiece we got to see was nothing less than a platinum tourbillon minute repeater with a fantastic guilloche dial, and equipped with a new movement for the brand, the 2755 TMR. We'll hopefully manage to do a special on this one. And the second piece is part of the Patrimony collection, and this is the Patrimony Moon Phase and Retrograde Date. We had seen a previous version quite close to this one, but the addition of the Moon Phase indicator indicator really balances nicely the design of this watch. And Vacheron added something rather nice too in terms of its functionality, because you don't have to use corrector pushers that can easily damage the case to change the date and or the moon indicator. All is done through the crown, a nice and convenient development by the brand. URWERK introduced an updated version of the EMC with a sportier look, and I know that some people think that this watch is quite an oddity, and I understand. But let me just remind you that this is the URWERK's first in-house movement and comes with an electronic monitoring system of its accuracy equipped within the watch itself. So no revolving satellite time display for this watch, but a skeletonized dial display. Next year it will be URWERK's 20th anniversary, and I just can't wait to see what kind of crazy timepieces they will celebrate this. Let's stay again a little bit up there, as Mille has come up with a serious revamped version of its iconic RM11, a watch that is immediately recognizable with its distinctive tonneau shape and technical look. This new watch, the RM11-03 flyback chronograph, takes some of the design features first seen on the Nadal family of watches, the RM27-01, and its little sister, the RM35. With these small extensions around the brand's famous case torque screws. I must admit that I haven't seen it in real, but can't wait to do that, and hopefully too we'll be able to do a nice little video about this new model. So I was mentioning before that brands are introducing more and more steel watches, as this segment is clearly less hit on the markets compared to gold and platinum watches according to the latest Swiss export figures. So in that direction, Piaget has come up with a new steel watch, the Polo S, and this is naturally quite a move for them, as they had always positioned themselves with higher end materials. And in contrast, and this I love, but Bovet, who had introduced the steel collection last year with the 1930, well, they just launched a gold version of this same watch. But again, this is quite a special brand with a nice little positioning. I think you got it that we quite like them. They are rather unique, and this year they've spoiled us quite a lot with some really great timepieces. Remember the Recital 18, for instance. So we also saw a new timepiece from Zenith in the Primero collection. This is a collaboration between the watch brand and legendary Rover. I'm generally not a big fan of these co-branding operations, but I must admit that this one is I quite like. The co-branding is subtle, just a small indication under the watchmaker's name, and I particularly like the fact that they've used aluminium for the case, the material used by Range Rover for its body part from the start. And it comes in a grey mate color, pretty nice. I also like this brushed grey dial, so quite a low-key but nice looking watch. And just for info, both the Primero and the Range Rover were initially introduced in 1969, so a little link between them. So another new timepiece launched in September was the HM8 by MB&F, and despite having brought to you a special video report on this timepiece, I just wanted to add a little something, because some of you have noticed that an HM7 was missing between the HM6 Space Pirate and this new HM8 Can-Am. Well, the reason is that MB&F had planned to launch both the HM7 and the HM8 this year. Yes, they are creative and productive, but since it's quite a small company, that would have meant that they would have put themselves in a rather awkward production position were they to launch both watches this same year. So they want to remain small. It's a strategic decision for Max Büsser, and it's a sound one. And this is particularly valid when you note that when they announce a new timepiece, these watches are made available on the market on that very same day. And I say this in contrast to some other brands where sometimes you have to wait several months, if not a full year, between a launch and its actual commercialization. Something clearly no one understands anymore. So why not launch the HM7 this year and wait till next year for the HM8? Well, the story is as follows. The HM8 has this close link to the Can-Am cars, and this year marks the 40th anniversary of this crazy racing car series. Okay, so a little tribute. But then why not invert the numbers? And there again, there's a good reason. As mentioned in the report, the HMH is a kind of a mix between the HM3 and an HM5, and 3 plus 5 equals 8. Reason why the HM8. Okay, you got me? Well, the conclusion is that we can't wait to see the HM7, and this should be around early next year, I guess. And now let's talk about the brand that is pulling it off quite nicely in today's economic climate, and this is TAG Heuer. Since Jean-Claude Biver took over a couple of years ago, the man behind the great success of Hublot, he has repositioned the brand where it should have always been, with more accessible watches. For a while the strategy was to compete against Rolex and Omega, but there's only one Rolex and one Omega, and that turned out to be not so successful, a little understatement for sure. Well, now we clearly see that he wants to add another dimension to the brand brand in terms of its historical legitimacy. He's been doing what it takes to make this vintage dimension pop up more distinctively, and we had seen this already last year where some vintage TAG Heuer were sold at some pretty hefty prices at some watch auction. What could have happened there? Well, he took this to another level in September by having invited quite a few serious aficionados of the brand from all over the world for a collector meeting held in the brand's facility in La Chaux-de-Fonds. One has to admit that this is a rather smart move, and we unfortunately didn't have time to attend, but let's see what will happen to the brand in the near future. Personally, I'm still waiting to see this tourbillon chronograph launched at Baselworld this year for an almost ridiculous price of 15,000 Swiss francs, maybe a tougher challenge than initially thought, and something that really annoyed some other people from other brands at the time, which in a position made Mr. Bieber very happy. Something else pretty smart we saw was the fact that HYT, you know, the watches with the fluidic time indication, well, they have increased the warranty of their watches from 3 to 5 years. And this is precisely something watch brands need to address, a better service policy, which in turn tend to prove to their clients that they have enough confidence in their watches to do so. And HYT has done this retroactively to all previous models too. But very few other brands have already taken that route, and again, I think this is smart and necessary. Who would buy a car today with a 1-year warranty, for instance? So that's it for the news, and now let's talk about what to expect in October, but that'll be short, I promise. Firstly, if you're in New York on the 14th and 15th of October, you might want to go to one of America's biggest watch show organized by WatchTime, the US-based Watchmaking magazine. This event will take place at the Gotham Hall, I love this name, and it's open to the public for a little entry fee. Some major brands will be present, but also quite a lot of independent ones, so a good occasion to see in real life some of these rare timepieces. And the good news is that we have 10 tickets available for you guys, so just send us an email at this address and we'll put the first 10 participants on the guest list. And if you're in New York, you might as well pass by the new Cartier boutique which just reopened on 5th Avenue. I just saw some pictures and it looks pretty nice. So now this is finally it for this edition of Prime Time. Thanks for your time, and again, plenty of very cool episodes of our watchmaking road trip coming your way. See you soon.